what time does it take in the 100 free to make the Olympic team next year?
53.67.
Okay. How often do you guys do social kick at Florida?
Once a season.
Welcome to Social Kick. I'm Bryan Lundquist. We got the full crew: Dr. John Mullen, Luke Paddington, and Natalie Hinds. What's up, Natalie? How's it going?
Hi, guys. Nice to see you guys.
Hey, good to see you too. All right, we got a few intro rapid fire questions to start our conversation today.
Okay, let's do it.
What is your favorite thing to do in this mega heat wave in the country right now?
Stay inside and weed.
Swim.
All right, Natalie Portman or Natalie Cole?
Natalie Portman, because I think, Natalie Portman.
I'm a big Natalie Portman fan too. Okay, have you tried IG Threads? How's your thread game?
I'm not into that.
All right.
I'm at the age where I think it's like beyond me now. Like, I don't want to do something new.
That's every social media for us.
Too old for Threads. All right, and
Yeah.
the last one: best performance you've seen at Worlds this week?
Jack Alexi, for sure.
Jack Alexi's been killing
You get
it,
picked from the 50 or the 100 free, but I think the 100 free, because that's like his first medal at Worlds, like individually. And second, obviously 50 is really cool as well, but 100 it's hard to do 3 100 frees in a row. So that's definitely the swim.
Legit. Yeah, that's true. Speaking of, what can you learn from, and how impressed were you with Molly O'Callahan's 100 free world record?
I mean, you guys understand this, but I don't think the normal person understands how crazy her splits are. Especially her second 50. Like, that's what we all dream about. And that obviously is the most impressive thing to me. Obviously, her final time is amazing as well. But to be able to swim less than a second than your first 50, which is where you dove in, is actually crazy. So that is what I take from it. I've also been looking at like when they breathe, how often they breathe, things like that. And I know, everything works different for everybody, but I had the honor of like being on Ariane Titmus's team for ISL, and just kind of like seeing how they train was really cool as well. But they know how to like stick with it, y'all, especially the last 15 meters, which is like my Achilles heel. So I definitely have been trying to take notes in that part of the race.
It's that Dean Boxall energy. You got to get some of that in Nesty.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing that out of Nesty, not going to lie.
Nesty has that. He has that intensity, and it's really crazy because if you look at him and you like kind of observe him, he's just a quiet dude. He's like in the corner. But like he can get so fired up, and it's like once he raises his voice, you're like, yep, whatever he says, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to ask any questions, but it happens so infrequently that when it does happen, you're like, okay, he like actually really means it. So he's intense, just in a very quiet way.
It's so funny to me because my exposure to Nesty, I haven't had much as a competitive swimmer other than recruiting. Because I remember when Nesty came and sat in my living room, and it was very stoic, right? He did an insight or like an in-home recruiting visit, and he just came and sat down. He sat in my living room and he goes, "All right, so you guys have any questions?" And he was just very quiet the whole time. But then, every countless number of swimmers who have gone to Florida or swam with him or had exposure to him have just been glowing about like the relationship that they have with him, or like the fact that there are these kind of other sides to his personality that you don't see from the outside. So it's it's just I feel like that's kind of how it should be with a coach, is that you've got this like rapport, and like maybe it's something special that you see that everybody else doesn't get to see. That's how it is.
He's a cool dude.
I have a personal story about Anthony, and it's going to segue to a question for you, Natalie. So I'm from Caribbean, and I first met Natalie when I was 14 years old, and we were my first national team, 1988. I'm an old man. And Anthony showed up with his gold medal at the Hilton Hotel, and we got to meet him, shake hands, take pictures, he had a little postcard with his medal, and it was really inspiring for me because I just made my first national team, and I realized that somebody from Trinidad, Anthony's from Trinidad, and Suriname with Trinidad, can get to the highest level in the sport, and made me believe that even though I have crappy pools and not much resources, you could get there if you put your mind to it. And Anthony was that inspiring person for me. it was representation from a small island point of view, right?
Yeah.
It's there's something about Anthony that inspired you to move back to Florida. Besides his demeanor, his expertise, his amazing coaching ability that got you to go back recently?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question because I didn't foresee myself going back to Florida when I came home from the Olympics, and I obviously still lived in Athens, Georgia. But I obviously knew my time at UGA was up because it was the end of a cycle. Half of us were moving on with our life. Most of them were not swimming again. But I was like, I'm going to keep going because I've wanted this to be my job forever. And I think I decided to move back to Florida because of my, I guess if you want to call it a rekindling of a relationship, at the Olympics. I obviously feel super comfortable with him before that because he was my coach at Florida when I did fly. And, just the rotation of groups. And he was always the quiet one. To be honest, he reminds me of my dad because my dad is very quiet, very reserved, very intense as a person, but he's not going to yell. He's not going to get mad. And when he does, he's really mad. So that kind of helps too. Just that familiarity. But I like a calm coach, and Jack Bowerly is the same way. He's a calm coach. I don't like being yelled at, and I've been yelled at in the past for things that I didn't think I needed to be yelled at, and my personality is to just shut down, get really angry and shut down, and that doesn't help me in any facet of life, especially trying to swim fast. So that really, I was like, I want to move back. I want to move somewhere where I'm already familiar, and that was familiar to me. And not to mention the amount of help that he gave me at the Olympics, during camp. It's crazy at camp, especially at the Olympics. Everyone is so uptight. Everyone is if this practice doesn't go well, I'm not going to swim well. And I was in a very interesting position because, again, I was a rookie, but I also was 27. So I was going through a multitude of just trying to walk this tightrope. And he really helped me walk that tightrope with just bringing things back to perspective. And when he tells you something, it's objective. It's not this, he's just talking this is what you need to do this. A plus B will equal C at the end of the day. No matter how you get there, this is what you have to do. And that's how I respond the best. So in that aspect, that's why I came back. And I also just didn't want to learn a new program. But when I walked in the door the first day, I was like, look, I'm getting older, so I trust you, but you and I are gonna, have to have communication because I'm not 20. I was like, I'm not doing stadiums if that's what you guys are gonna do. I was like, that's my biggest thing. I was like, I am not going in that stadium, and I am
hell of a stadium too.
Huh?
It's a hell of a stadium to do then as well.
Yeah, so, I'm not walking up 90 steps and walking back down. I'm just not going to do it. But that was my only thing. But everything else, I was like, look, I trust you. I know what I'm getting myself into. But yeah, that's the thing. It's a puzzle. It's an ever-going puzzle. And sometimes you have the right pieces and sometimes you don't. And so that's kind of the allure with swimming at such a high level. It's ooh, what else can you do? But yeah, that's why I came back. That's a long answer, but that's,
it's good.
The things that I thought about before moving back.
I want to know how that. So when Anthony swam in 88 and 92, when he's on the blocks, when he won in 88, when he got a bronze in 92, he was very calm and collected and reserved, and he was known as one of the hardest workers. Put his head down, did the work. Has that attitude you just described as a coach helped you as a swimmer behind the blocks in races to settle yourself, ground yourself, etc.? Yeah,
because you have a coach who's done it. And he obviously knows what it takes to do it. So why would I not listen to him so that I can do it, And that approach of being really calm and just very grounded in what you're doing, no matter what the set is, what's going on at a meet, what the stakes are, is very helpful. I'll tell you guys a funny story. So last summer, World Trials was super early. Y'all know, in April or something like that. And we do this set every day, or not every day, sorry. We do this set very frequently. It's 850s from the blocks, all fast, 4 on 2 minutes, 2 on 130, 2 on 1 minute. And we'll do it however many rounds, depending on the season. And it's really hard. When I hear that's the set for the day, I'm like, oh, this set. But it's such a good set because if you don't feel well, you still have to swim it. Like it's like
Mm.
you're always going from a dive, and on one side you don't have blocks, and so that's like you need to go the same time even with or without blocks. So it's just a really, really tough set. And I think it was like one of our few times right before we started tapering, and he was inside, so we were in the outside pool, and it was quiet because everybody was like, you know, taper's almost there, but you're not there, which is the worst place to be
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
And he just comes outside like screaming, like obviously not in a bad way, but he's like, "We're not getting beat this summer. We're not tired." And everybody just like, you get revived. You're like, oh, "Okay, yeah, yeah." And like everyone had like such a good set. He just was able to change the mood. And those are the things that like I like him for. Like he just tells you, like, look, if you don't want to get beat this summer, this is what you have to do. And
Yeah.
you know what? If it doesn't work out, at least you know you gave 100%. And so those are the things that like inspire me about him, is that he
Yeah.
is calm when he needs to be, but if he senses that like he needs to be the cheerleader, like you'll see a burst of energy and then he'll go back to his class.
Talk about inspiring as well. You've worked alongside with two of the few Black head coaches in NCAA swimming, Leah Martinez-Stansel and now Anthony.
Yeah.
That is extremely sad, in my opinion, that there only are two. I don't know if Leah's associate head coach now at LSU, but in fact, there are only two. And it's really important that we have that representation at the coaching level to begin with. Can you talk about that, of how that's especially for yourself as a swimmer, where you're a minority on the pool deck, and to have that allegiance and alignment with your head coach, how's that affected you and helped you?
Well, I'll be honest with you guys. When I was little and like going through the ranks of swimming and trying to swim fast, I'll be honest, I didn't even like look around to see who else was on deck that looked like me, because I was so like hell bent on getting first. Like I honestly didn't care. And it wasn't until I got older, like obviously through quarantine and George Floyd, which started the Black Lives Matter movement, was I able to like reflect, because I stayed at home for 3 months. So I had a lot of time to reflect, because my parents, they live in rural Alabama. So I had a lot of time to sit on the porch in my rocking chair and just kind of like ponder, like, what is my platform in this sport? Because like I need, what have I done and what do I need to do?
Right.
So to answer your question, in college, I think subconsciously I went to Florida because I saw people who looked like me in a coaching role.
Right.
I don't think I actually thought that, like that wasn't a thought that crossed my mind, but I think I gravitated towards that because y'all probably know this. I'm from Midland, Texas. I was like the only Black person of few, and it only became more and more as I went up in the ranks. So I think being able to see people at that level and knowing the history of how they swam and going to the Olympics, like I was like, I feel comfortable that I will get that type of support that I need if anything racial or if I, anything like that comes my way. Thankfully it didn't. But yeah, subconsciously, I think it played a big role. And, water is not discriminatory. So if you swim fast, you swim fast. And so Nessie and I talk about it sometimes, maybe towards the beginning of the season, like I'm swimming fast for myself. And I'm swimming fast for my country, but I'm also swimming fast for like minorities that may not know how to get where I am. And like you said, he is so inspiring because he came from such a small pool, literally and figuratively, but he came from such a small pool and was able to go to the Olympics multiple times. He was able to win the Olympics in such a crazy, inspiring fashion. But like people in like say inner city DC, they have no idea how to even begin to get there. And so he has helped me realize like what else do I want to do with my career and my platform while I am in it, while the irons are hot. So yeah, it's been like a really interesting journey on like, when I first met him versus our relationship now, because I'm so much older and I, have established a platform, and he's always willing to help me. And anytime I'm like, hey, I'm going to do a clinic, or hey, I'm going to do this, obviously training will be taken care of, but he's always a supporter of that, because you never know who you can inspire. And I know he's inspired so many Black and brown people to swim. Yeah. So he's very, very supportive of that. And that's one of the reasons he inspires me as well. Leah as well. But she's not there with me right now. But yeah, we still keep in touch.
Leah's awesome. She inspired me. I swam alongside her.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm going to date. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to date this podcast a little bit. Yesterday, there was at Worlds, the 100 fly to me was a momentous occasion. And remind me of Anthony when he swam in '88, and he stood on that podium as a black man and then 2 white men next to him. In 2015, you did something remarkable with Leah and Simone. First time in celebrity history. For those who are listening, there were 3 black athletes on the podium, and no matter. But yesterday, Dari came second, Josh came third. I don't know when last, if ever, we've had on a world's podium 2 black athletes medal. And I'm glad we're starting to see a little bit more of that. You think of when Tony won, when Maritza won, when Simone won. Do you know what I mean? I think that's a really important to this. So when are we going to see you and Simone up on the podium 1, 2?
I don't know. It's either going to be this next time or it's going to be never. But I think going to your point about Simone and I on the podium, at the Olympics when we were able to get third and stand on the podium, I mean, it's obviously such a small time you're standing there in that moment. It's like, I don't know, 3 to 4 minutes. And I was so overcome with emotion selfishly because like, I was just trying to make the team. I never foresaw myself being on a finals relay and standing on a podium with a medal. So all of that was just like, it was just overload of emotion for me. But when I look back at the pictures, I'm like, wow, there's really 2 black. Half of our relay is black, which is super, super cool. And I would say only at like age 26, 27 am I able to like be self-aware enough to like notice things like that. And I mean, it could be like sad, but I'm glad I finally got to that point where I realized that. And like you said, in 2015, unfortunately, I was only worried about the next relay because we weren't done swimming. So to me, I was just like, I got third. And like, Leah beat me by like 0.05. So that's why I was upset. And then I remember subsequent days after that, I was overcome with emotion because I felt overwhelmed that everyone was making a big deal out of it. And I was on the phone with my dad. There's a really, really cool radio show called The Ricky Smiley Show. And he's like a really, really famous radio host. And so I was on there. And I was on there, but I was mentioned on there. And like, I was just like, Dad, I don't understand like why everyone's still talking about it. And you probably can imagine, like my dad, his birthday was actually yesterday. He just turned 69. So he has dealt with his share of, struggles, racial disparity, all sorts of things. And so you can imagine how he feels that his daughter just said that. He was not the happiest, but it was a learning experience for me. And I think now I'm able to appreciate that. And that's why I understand, like, what can I do for others to come after me? Because, I mean, I see a lot more Black people at Pro Series, and USA Swimming doing things to reach out to like boys and girls clubs and like exposing them to these things like, hey, this is possible. So like the podium and being at the Olympics, it's definitely, I'm very grateful that it was me who was the 4th Black person to make an Olympics team. I hope not to be the last, but we're starting to like trend in the right direction.
So what does the ideal end of a career look like for you? What are you still swimming for?
So that's a good question. My mom asked me that the other day. She's like, why are you still swimming if you reached all your goals? I'm like, I mean, I feel like any elite swimmer is not the type of person to reach a goal and be like, cool, nice, I'm done. Like, that's not how I'm wired. So an ideal end of career for me would just to be inner peace, would be knowing that I've done everything I've done to make the team, make my goals, reach my goal times, things like that. A good example of that is making this path team. I know I did everything I could. I mean, that's the first time in my career and my life that I was like, I turned every stone over to get to where I'm at, and it happened to work out for me. So, and I know what that feels like. So that's the feeling I want to get when I'm done with, when I hang my goggles up and I'm done. So yeah, that's how I would ideally like to leave the sport. Either way, it's going to be sad, but that's how I'd like to leave.
Yeah. Well, that resonates a lot with me as well because, my career peaked probably 2 or 3 years before I retired, and it didn't end, great. And that happens for a lot of people. But when you're in it, it's hard to remember that. But I do know for sure that my last season of training, I was the strongest, the fittest in the pool. I mean, I did everything right, literally everything I could have done. I knew when I, kind of went to Olympic trials that was I had done everything.
Yeah.
And so I was able to walk away with that piece. It was still disappointing, but it was going to be sad either way. And so,
it's going to be sad either way.
But that satisfaction, the inner satisfaction is a different satisfaction than, podium medal satisfaction. That's cool too. I mean, that is fun, but good for you. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Now, looking at this past year, I'm curious, like you said, you've been at this for a while. If we look at just some of the times, it may come off as, a disappointing season or maybe not where you wanted it to be. But what are some of those takeaways or learnings and positives that you're taking away from World Champ Trials and how you did?
So obviously disappointment is like the first and the foremost. And obviously I wanted to make the team and everybody wants to make the team. That's why we go to World Trials. But I guess as you get older and like not many people are in the sport who are approaching 30 or who are 30. I learned this from Melanie Margalith, who's now at SMU. I trained with her. She is an amazing friend and was an amazing teammate. And one of the things I learned with her, because she was approaching 30, she went to trials when she was 30, is that like as you get older, you realize you physically like can't train how you were when you were 20. Like
no
the
stadiums.
grind, no stadiums. The grind and all of that, you still do it, but recovery becomes truly number one. And it's almost like I said earlier, like it's a puzzle, and that's the allure and the frustration with getting older in swimming is that what worked for me, what I'm finding out, what worked for me on the road to Tokyo doesn't necessarily yield the same results as it does now. Like my morning routine, the things I'm eating, the way I warm up, like I'm not feeling the same as I did before. And it took me, this season is like, that's my biggest realization, I guess, to answer your question. So the thing to do now is to not completely start from scratch, because like obviously I have so much experience, like I'm not a novice, but what are things I can tweak? Like how can I change my weight program? How can I change my approach to practice? How can I recover better? I only just got a Normatec for my legs like 2 months before trials, and I was like, this is the best thing ever. And everyone's like, how do you not have one? And I was like, I just wasn't able to get one. And so it's just small things like that truly to me make a big difference. So yeah, those are like the biggest takeaways. Obviously I was disappointed. I really wanted to swim faster, and I thought I would swim faster. But there are things to take away. Life still goes on. The sun comes up and it goes down, if you make it or if you don't. So it's just a time to like reset. I went back home. I spent a little bit of time in Gainesville. I went back home. Right now I'm at home with my family, just like really regrounding myself for the next 9 months. Cause it's like, once I go back to Gainesville, like it's time to like put my plan that I've been formulating on my time off back into action. So hopefully it works out next time.
Yeah, I was chatting with Brandon Fisher, who's in his 30s and still going after the 100, 200 breast, working a full-time job. And, we talk, and, we've had to change his training program so much based off of, his work and just stressors there. But like you said, just how you change as you get older. And one thing that really hit home was, so much, but almost so little, because what did work is changing or maybe not working as well. So having to figure out what's still working, what's not working, and be comfortable making some changes that, you're not sure if they're going to work or not, despite how long you've been doing this for.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, like you said, Bryan, like your last season, you were the strongest you had been, and you knew it. You're the most fit you had been. That's how I feel. I'm like I love lifting weights, and like I was the strongest I was in the weight room. It's just really like slowing it down and trying to figure out like how can I convert that to the pool? Like, is it something within my technique or just things like that? So that's going to be like really my biggest area of focus this season is starting slow because there's always time, especially at Florida with the way that we train. I will be in shape at some point. So it's just really like technique and like getting things together that way.
I was curious specifically about your taper this season because that's something that when it comes to coaching changes or training group changes is, as a swimmer for me, was always on my mind of understanding and having that trust that that ultimately the performance is going to come together, that like coach has a plan and that we have a plan, and that, you know, even though I feel like garbage on today, or you have that like pre-taper anxiety, or I still feel like crap. Or maybe you feel great, or I don't know. If you feel great, it's usually going to be a good thing. But a lot of times for me, when it didn't go well, I was just like, it wasn't coming together. I never got sharp. I'm just curious if there's anything like, as you kind of take the learnings from this season and look forward, what was it specifically about kind of this taper, you know, with a different training environment? Were there any indicators that you could look to and go, okay, like, this worked for me as a younger Natalie, maybe that's something that I need to try to find, or this type of work during taper, or, you know, too much, too little? Are there any specifics that you can take away from this past season?
Yeah, definitely. I actually am like really blessed because I was at Florida last season for World Trials, and when I did make it and swam 3 of 4 best times, I think. And then there's this season where I didn't make it and didn't swim to the best of my ability. And I actually really like our taper. It's different than I normally or have tapered in the past because it's still really hard, if that makes sense. And like we call it like a machine. Like if you fall in line with the machine and you trust the machine, it'll work out. And by machine, I mean like the training plan, when we go fast, you know, it's the second Tuesday of the month, so we can expect this type of set. Like it's those types of things. And so with taper, it doesn't really change until obviously like that week and a half before, where we don't really do anything crazy. But I can't really pinpoint anything because I mean, I love our taper. That most people don't say that, but one thing I've learned about taper, I'm gonna hate to say this because like younger listeners are gonna be like, what? But when I was in college and I was training with Troy, I used to get so mad if I thought something was like too hard. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I used to get so mad if something was so hard. I'd be like, oh, it's gonna blow my taper, or I can't walk down the street. It's gonna blow my taper. When that's not necessarily the point of taper. Like you have to get out of this mindset that taper is like easy, like everything's easy. And so once I got out of that mindset and got into the mindset of like taper is preparation to go fast, like everything seemed more palatable. Like when we would go fast and it would hurt, I'd be like, okay, did I breathe where I want to breathe? Am I set up in the pool where I want to be set up in the pool? Am I making my move where I think I need to make my move? So once I switched my mindset to that, like I was fine. And training with someone like Kieran Smith is perfect for me because he's gonna hate me for saying this, but Kieran is so confident. Like he's obnoxiously confident, but like I want to have it.
Yeah.
And you know, I remember like we finished like I think it was like the 850 set or one of our like benchmark sets, and I was like worried, and I was worried because I was so tired, and I was like, should I? I literally was like, should I be this tired? And he's like, Nat, going hard is fast. And I was like, that's all I need to hear. Like, so taper is not necessarily about being easy. Like everything's not easy. And so to answer your question, yeah, I think I did everything I could with taper. I don't think there was anything that I was missing. Because I did feel good. I think the mental aspect of swimming is obviously so important and sometimes more important than the physical. So that could have been lacking in my preparation, like right up until the meet. But as far as physically and the taper was concerned, I felt great and I felt like I was prepared on that front. So yeah, I think it's just a mindset thing.
And that's really good advice, because I was such a prima donna when I tapered. I'm like, I can't do stairs. We can't go to this restaurant. No. Can you get me that milk? It was wrong mindset. But thanks for that advice. Good advice.
Yeah. I was too, because I compete in triathlon now, and it's like totally different. You know, you have to do volume. It's like totally. I mean, I was a sprinter in the pool, and then do these like hours long races, and my concept of taper is completely different now, and it is about the work.
Finish the race.
It's about specific work. It's not about just resting. But as a swimmer, I was the elevator everywhere guy. So,
well, it's like, hey, we're gonna taper, and the coach is like, all right, taper 1% easier, and the swimmers are like, it's gonna be 50% easier. It's like, no, it was easier, 1% easier.
Yes, that's a perfect example. It's like, but I will say there is a point in taper where you're in this like week period where you're like, I don't need to be doing this much, and you have to really calm yourself down because you're almost in taper, but you're not there yet. And so it's just easier to focus on doing what you're given correctly. And obviously sitting here in a chair saying that is easier said than done.
Sure.
Because I mean, I'm so mental. Like when I'm confident, there's nothing that can stand in my way. And when I'm not confident, the world is ending. And so I just walk a tightrope all the time with like calming myself down during that time period specifically, like, chill out. Like you have like 5 weeks, like you're fine. So it is a mental thing. It's some people fare better with it than others, but it's a mind game.
Yeah, we'd love to learn more about the groups that you are training with and at Florida. I know you mentioned, someone with Kieran Smith, and I think a lot of listeners will be like, wow, you're training with Kieran. He's doing the 400 and these things. We know obviously about the Florida distance crew right now with Fink and Ledecky. We know the Florida men's NCAA sprint group is killing Auburn and the NCAA here.
That was a dig.
Sorry, but I had to throw it in there. So maybe tell us a little bit about kind of the pro training dynamics, where you fit into the mix, and the personalities in there.
Yeah, so being a pro really doesn't mean anything in terms of training because we're all together, like with the college team, unless you have your midseason meets, SECs, NCAAs, some dual meets or whatever. Like we'll get a choice to swim in the meet or swim and practice before the meet. So those are really the only differences. I also don't have to go to any of those meetings that the kids have to go to, which is really nice. I call them kids now because they're like 18 and I'm like almost 30, which is crazy. But that's how we fit in as far as a training dynamic. So we obviously have our groups. Most of the time we warm up together. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we warm up in the group we're going to be in the whole practice, but we always usually warm up together. And then split off into, depends on the day, sprint, middle distance, and there's a couple of hybrids in there. Like sometimes I will do, like this year, I did, well, it's a better example last year. So before Worlds, like that season, Caleb and I would do a week with mid, a week with sprint, a week with mid, a week with sprint. So I kind of liked that because not that sprint wasn't a challenge, like it's all hard, but it's just, you're with different people. There's just different things going on. And like, I'm a better trainer than I was, but I'm not the best trainer. And like some of those girls, they're like killing me in these mid-distance sets. So it's like very good to be humbled every once in a while, even though you're, like as a pro, because like I have the mental that like, none of these girls should beat me. And that's not a dig at any of the girls. It's just like, none of them should beat me for myself, So, there's a sprint group, definitely. And there's staples in the sprint group. Like a lot of the boys on sprint relays are in that group. Some of them will go depending on the set that day to mid-distance group. And then there's the poor people who are hybrids of mid-distance and distance who have to be in distance some days. But that's kind of how the dynamic goes. And as far as personalities, There is a lot. Like, that's why I'm so, so glad that Caleb's back because he is such a big personality and one that's so positive. Um, and not like when he was gone was it dismal, but he just adds a different element of like just wild jokes and just like a really, really innocent perspective. As I said before, Kieran is a very loud personality and he's just so blunt as a person that I admire him. Katie is like by far done the most growth. I'm so proud of her because if you've ever talked to Katie, she's like so good socially. She's really good at interviews. Like, but as a person, she's pretty quiet, like pretty reserved. Um, and when I moved to Florida, she'd been there for maybe like a month or two, and she was like pretty quiet. And I remember the first day she like threw a joke back at one of the boys. Like everyone was like, "Oh my goodness!" And so now she's like, she's able to like voice what she wants. Like if she, if she wants to call someone out, she will. She doesn't do that very often, but it's nice to see her come out of her social shell. And then there's me, who will give it to you straight all the time. I'll add spice to it. If I don't want to talk to you, I won't talk to you. So there's a lot of things going on, and I love it. And as we're with the college kids, there's even more personalities in there.
Right.
But like as a pro, I feel like it's my responsibility to. That's also why I came back, but also to help the college kids and the girls more specifically with any problems that they're having, whether it be not even swimming, just like juggling being away from home for the first time or juggling like a problem that they have. And so it's been really cool. I enjoy it. I try not to let it consume me because I'm like an all-in type of person. So if someone tells me a problem, I'm like following up. I'm like, did you do this? I'm like, Nat, you don't have to do that. Like, this is not your life. You have your own things to worry about. So I try and like walk that tightrope again. So I love it. It's definitely something different every day. And obviously, like sometimes during like a Christmas training, it gets like hard and everyone's, kind of at that like 1% level. But we try and help each other because, somebody's worst day is somebody else's best day. So we were all there for each other.
When I was kind of putting this question together of the groups and the sprinters, as odd as it is, I didn't even think of Caleb. I think obviously with where he's kind of at right now, for us that follow the sport so much, we're kind of not sure what's going on. Can you give us a little insight on maybe, like you said, how it's affected the group or how that's been this, I guess, the last 6 months with him?
Yeah. Obviously being like privy to his privacy, I don't want to like give, speak for him, but during his time off, like throughout this whole, like, I want to say situation, I guess, everyone's been so supportive of him. And your mental health is your mental health and whatever you need to do is whatever you need to do. And that's something that Nesty really preaches to us. Like, if you feel that you don't need to do this, you're a pro and you can do whatever you want. Like you're here because you want to be here anyway. So if you need a day or a week or however long, then that's fine. So yeah, I mean, like people stayed in touch with him while he wasn't swimming. And when he came back, it was just like such a nice buzz on the pool deck. Because he is just such a dynamic personality. He's such a great person. And yeah, like the whole swimming thing is like its whole other entity. Like however he wanted to tackle that, that's his business. But when he was in the pool with us, like it was just like before we went to Worlds or anything like that. So, he does what he needs to do for his mental and his life outside the pool. And he just seems so much happier and so much looser. And like, obviously he's the same person. So, he's older too. So it's nice to, see him grow. Cause I met him when he was 18 and I was 20, I think.
Yeah.
Yikes. And so it's been really cool to have friends and have a friendship that's that long, that old, and like there's just so many different versions of a person, myself included. And so having him back has been the best. And being at world trials, like not knowing to expect from him, and same for himself, he's like, I don't know what's gonna happen. It goes back to what I said before. I asked him, I was like, did you do everything? Did you do what you thought you could? Like, did you give 100%? And his answer was yes. And so we both nodded and we're like, okay, well then, a new season's coming up and we have new goals and things like that. So it's pretty much the same approach. Like, if you need the break, take it. Obviously, with my story, I'm all for a break. I took a 2-year break. And so I'm all for anyone who needs to take a break.
Hey, Natalie, you gave us a glimpse of this a few minutes ago when you were talking about how you show up for your teammates and how you kind of take that on yourself. But, we all met through swimming, and the background on our show is that I got connected to Luke when I first moved to California. And then, we kind of, the sport of swimming connects people. And the way that we get connected to guests is that we ask every guest off mic, off camera at the end of the show, who is really great in their network and who do they recommend that we talk to. I would say 90% of our guests come about through that sort of recommendation. And I'm not kidding when I say this, probably 50% of at least the women that we've had on this show, but it's been a lot of guys too, say the answer to that question is Natalie Hinds. And it's been so overwhelming to us that I told you via email, it's like it's become a running joke until we had this conversation that, like everybody is recommending Natalie Hinds. It might be a hard question to answer for you, but why do you think that is?
Yeah, that is a hard question. Short answer, I don't know. But if I gave it some thought here in like 2 seconds, I would say I find that like growing up, I don't know if it's because of our country and it's a very fast-paced country. So like, for instance, people will say, good morning, how are you? Good, how are you? Good. And that's like a very common like interaction with anyone, grocery store, person on the street, whatever. And I find that like really annoys me. So as my personality, I think I just really listen to when people are talking to me. And I've been told I have a really good knack for making people feel like they're the only person that I am focused on. Like there could be a lot of people in the room, but like they feel like they're really heard when they're talking to me. So once I heard that, I was like, okay, that's how I would want to feel. Like Beisel is really good at that. She is really good at being like the busiest person on the planet. But when you're talking to her, you would never guess that she has so much stuff piling up behind her because she's like here for you in the moment. So I think that's a big reason why like people feel like heard when speaking to me. I think I'm witty, funny, and yeah, I think that's also a big proponent. Like I'm love to make people laugh. I think I have a very funny personality, a very open personality. I will always offer how I'm feeling, regardless of if someone asks for it or not. And I think those are like the few big reasons why. And last Worlds, I was like, I was like really hoping to be captain because I was like, I really want to put this. I wanted to put it on my resume first and foremost, but I also wanted the confidence of feeling like people felt like I could quote unquote lead them because, everyone wants to feel like they have a role on the team. There's older people on the team, such as myself. There's younger people on the team, such as like Katie Grimes, who's like 16 or something, just learned how to drive. But everyone wants to feel like they like have a role within TeamUSA because it is such an exclusive club to be a part of. There's only like 52 spots or something like that. So last summer, like being voted captain was like super, super cool because I remember seeing Beisel as captain and Matthew Grievers as captain and Ryan as like captain too. And I'm like, I feel like I could do that. And so being like voted captain is really, really cool. And that kind of like gave me the confidence, like, oh, like the person I am is a good person. And so, everyone's different. Everyone has their quirks. And I feel like they should all be celebrated. And it's not a reason to dislike someone. It's like you have Katie and you have Lily King, two very different personalities, but I love each of them for so many different reasons. And so I think being able to be the glue that like, you know, that one person in the middle of a web that people can go to for this and that, I like take a lot of pride in. So that's probably why.
That's a great insight. And at this past Worlds, on the first few days, the U.S. team, you know, wasn't getting the golds like everyone expects the U.S. to get every time. And Rowdy and them were like, oh, who are the captains that are going to step up and what are they going to do? Could you tell us more just kind of what that dynamic is on like the national team or at a big meet and what the captains do or how much they are involved?
Yeah, being a captain, okay, so it's hard to like express, I guess. Basically, being a captain is you do exactly what you were doing to become a captain, if that makes sense. Like you don't have to. That was a big thing with me. I was like super nervous after our meeting of voting captains. Like, okay, so what do I do? Like, how do I do this? And Ryan and Caleb were like, you were obviously voted captain for a reason, so like, don't change anything. So in that respect, captains don't necessarily like do anything. They kind of wrangle the people who are like, you know, outliers, like, hey, come over here, you know, things like that. They kind of run the team meetings. Yeah, they just bring everybody together. I think as far as a inspiration standpoint, they serve a purpose because people are inspired by them. That's why they want them to lead this group. And so it's all about being open and being able to compartmentalize what you're trying to do at a meet and compartmentalize if you see someone struggling. Like, so last season, Leah Hayes, it was her first world. I mean, honestly, it was my first worlds, but you know what I mean? Like, this was her first like national team trip. And she had just finished semis of the 200 IM. It's day one, I think. Yeah, I think it was day one. It was early in the meet. And I can only put myself in her shoes. She's 15. She's trying to win. This is her first everything, and she's trying to win a medal. I can only imagine how nervous she is. So, like, my role as a captain and just like my personality in general is to check after her, like to be like, hey, explain to me, like, if you need to, how you're feeling, you can vent. Like, this isn't one of those things where I need to give you advice because I've been in your shoes before. You just need to vent. You just need to tell someone how nervous you are, and you may feel better. So it's things like that where you kind of have to be more dialed into like what your teammates are doing to kind of help them through, as well as worry about yourself too. So it is like a double-edged sword. Such an honor though, first and foremost, but those are the kind of things you do. Everyone has different strengths though. I know this is a long-winded answer, but like Leah was captain and she's more crafty and more motherly type. So she had the girls doing craft the night before Worlds and like getting them ready that way and like kind of taking the stress off, where that's not my strong suit. So every captain comes with their own strengths to help the team.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a quick story of mine because I think you said Ryan earlier. You're talking about Murphy. His first international team was a Pan Am's team that I was the captain on, and it was my last international team. And so, but you're right. Like I share too in some of your observation about the experience of being voted a captain, and then also kind of how you find what your role is within the team. Because my role, I was not a team captain at Auburn, but my role within the team was very different than what I felt like my role was as a team captain on Team USA. And so like that's part of the job too, is realizing kind of what the team dynamic is and what's needed, and then finding your way into the best position for that team, whether that just be, you know, a resource for people who are new, or maybe there are some specifics about how to navigate a situation, etc. So but I were joking with Murph about that it's just like, wow, it's given that he's kind of the elder statesman now, or one of, and has had such a long career, that's where it started between the two of us. I wanted to talk about especially as you mentioned this, like almost 30, you know, and swimming. You can't exist in the sport for that long without developing a lot of your livelihood and your personality and the things that are important to you outside of swimming. Like you're not only a swimmer.
Yeah.
And you've got a lot of things going on outside of the pool. You do some cool stuff with a business on the side with Luminary. Curious just to hear about you outside of the pool deck. Like what's going on in your life? What do you love doing? What's happening, between workouts, and how do you look at kind of your identity now, maybe compared to, your early days when maybe it was more swimming forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard not to have swimming consume your life because, like, to be really good, it kind of has to sometimes. Like, there's a time for it. So I think realizing that is the biggest thing. But yeah, I'm starting to like experiment outside of swimming to kind of see what I would like when I'm done swimming because sadly enough, when I stopped swimming in 2016, I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I feel like I've been dropped into Times Square with not a map or a destination. And it was the worst feeling ever. Like I felt so lost. I didn't know, I hadn't put any thought into life after swimming, like what I wanted to do. I just wanted to get out of the sport because I was like doing so bad. So now that things are coming to an end, I'm like, okay, well, what are my goals for the end of my career? Like, what do I want to happen when I take my suit off for the last time? And part of that is I'd like a job. I'd like to have like something to do, that can like sustain my lifestyle. So meeting people, number one, not necessarily networking because that kind of puts the negative connotation on like, hi, I need a job. How are you? Like, I don't want that. I just want to meet cool people. And so I'm part of the USA Swimming Foundation. I became part of that like last year, I think.
Oh, cool.
So that's one of those things I never thought I would be a part of, but because of my platform and the way that I've handled myself, I'm really proud that like they want me to be a part of that as an ambassador, along with Chase and Ryan. And Ryan has been so good, and so has Chase, about like kind of helping me along navigate this being an ambassador. Because you meet some really, really influential people. You meet really cool personalities. You meet people like that have jobs that you would never want to do, but they're really interesting. Like sleep doctors. Like I'm not going to be a sleep doctor, but like, let me ask you some questions so I can become better at sleep. So being an ambassador for the USA Swimming Foundation, and slowly getting involved with that is really cool. Takes up a little bit of my time. Like in August, I'm going to my first MLB game for Swim Night, which is put on by USA Swimming Foundation. So I'll be able to meet really cool people, watch an MLB game. I'm kind of getting into baseball, so it's really cool.
Which game?
It's the Red Sox versus the Royals on the 9th of August. So is it a bad game?
They both stink.
They suck right now.
Sorry.
Well, I've gotten into baseball, like, as you guys know, the Gators went to the finals of the College World Series. We did not win, but we were there at the end, which was a really cool experience, like, for everyone who loves the Gators. But anyways, that takes my time up. Luminary takes my time up because that is, like I said, that's a puzzle that's never going to get solved, and I enjoy putting stuff together that I'm never going to be able to replicate because I don't like have a pattern for making wall tapestries. And that also allows me to meet people too that just come out of the woodworks and are just really interested in my story. Like, oh, someone who's an elite swimmer who also has like a business. Like, so that's really cool. That takes up some time. And my social circle, like I'm not like a very social person at all. I'm actually like a very big homebody. But I think it's important to have a balance. In Athens, guys, you wouldn't believe me if I told you about. In Athens, I didn't do anything. Like I could have stayed inside 48 hours over the weekend and didn't have a problem with it because that was my life. Like swimming was my life, and I was like, look, I want to make this team, and I am going to. That's why I'm here. It's a business transaction, and I'm going to make this team. And so once I made the team, I was like, okay, now let's start to like have some balance and like friends and like things to do. So I love to eat. So, I got to eat, things like that. But it's kind of just always in the back of my mind. I'm always trying to figure out how can I keep swimming in my life when I'm done competing. whether that be clinics or grants or coming up with foundations. And like, obviously that's a huge thing. So it's a very slow process, but those are things I want to do. I want to help minorities be exposed so they have the option to try to swim at a higher level. Because one thing I had was resources, and I'm very
Yeah.
grateful for that. I had a mom and a dad who never needed to tell me no, never needed to say not this month or not next month, but anything I wanted to do, it was available for me to do it. I was able to travel. I was able to go to juniors at 14 and like get my butt whooped. So I was like, okay, I need to go back home and do it again. They're always there to be in the stands, to pay for a suit, to pay for bags, travel, all of it. And I know a lot of minorities, they don't have that. So exposure, that's something I'm really, really passionate about, is like figuring out how I can do that in my own way. So those are things that like keep me up at night.
I think that's a good exposure in your own way. If I was to, my only knowledge of you is what I see on social and your websites. I've never met you or talked to you, but I definitely got a huge sense of that. Natalie Hinds is an artist. It's a really good design aesthetic. I love your I love your logo on your website.
Thank you.
I love your your woven work, your needlepoint. You're a true artist, and a good artist has empathy, and it's able to understand and also have confidence in who they are and what they're about. And I've got the sense in this discussion in the last 45 minutes is that you talk about your resume and your plan and what you're about. You definitely seem to have a strong sense of making sure that you are aligned to where you want to go and what you want to be. I get that sense. And with you have to align with brands as well. USA Swimming has been driving that for you, as you mentioned. You've been involved with the Lead Sports Clinic that Carolyn and Rebecca have done. And that's also really important to give back and mentorship. And also from your Instagram, I don't know, but you're aligned to a brand, Arena, that has raised a consciousness about pride, about planet water. So, that's really important for you. I'm assuming that the whole alignment and consciousness and having a plan of who you are and where you're going.
Yeah, so, definitely. Yeah. I don't have many sponsorships, but I'm okay with that because, like, you guys don't know this about me, but I love skincare and I love self-care in general, which obviously skincare falls under, but I've been given brands of skincare that like earlier on my Instagram, La Roche-Posay, which is a really cool skincare brand. They were like, we would love to send you some stuff. And you would have thought I like won the lottery. I'm like, oh my God, this was my goal to be with a skincare brand. Not that I'm with them, but to be able to like interact with a skincare brand that like I wanted to interact with was such a big win for me. So yeah, like as you said, Luke, during quarantine, I want to say, when I had all that time in rural Alabama to sit and think like, what is my purpose? And that's a big, daunting question, but like one that you can kind of chip away at. And I kind of made it smaller to what is my platform in swimming? Like, what is my purpose besides swimming fast and representing Team USA? Because it's going to come to an end one day. And those are the things I came up with. I was like, I want to be with a suit brand. I like Arena because it is not a huge conglomeration. It's small, especially USA Arena is smaller. Obviously, I want the suit to fit, but it's always been my dream to partner with a swim brand or with a suit company. And like you said, they're very like all inclusive, and I really appreciate that about them. And we had a summit last year. They're always trying to figure out new ways to be better. They're always listening to us. Like, so yes, I've thoroughly thought about like everything you're seeing. I've thoroughly already thought about, and I continue to think about. So that, like you said, when you go to my Instagram page or you go to my website, you know what I'm about. And it's not a matter of, oh, I wonder if she would do this. It's like, oh, I see that she's done this. Let me see if she would like to do this. It seems like it'd be up her alley. And so the inquiries that I get, they're usually right up my alley. It's just a matter of time commitment and things like that. So I'm proud of myself for that, and I obviously am really hard on myself. I'm my own biggest critic, so sometimes I don't feel like that. But now that I've had time to sit and reflect, which is a good, important time to have, I've been able to be like, you know what? You have so many things going for yourself, so it's just important to take advantage of, you know, those opportunities going forward.
Hell yeah, great advice.
Yeah.
Let's wrap it up with some rapid fire, Natalie.
All right, let's do it.
What's the hardest race in swimming?
100 for your two back.
Olympic gold or world record?
Oh my God, we had this discussion all throughout practice. Olympic gold or world record? Olympic gold. Nobody can take that away from you, but they can take a world record away from you.
Do you pee in the pool?
Yeah, every day.
What's your go-to snack at a swim meet?
Gatorade Chews gummies.
What's the slowest acceptable reaction time for a sprinter?
0.75.
Who's got the best nails in swimming?
I do.
What's the most annoying thing that a teammate
We
can
lost
do
her.
in practice? Oh, lost her.
Her battery may have died.
Maybe.
I was going to say it went like that.
Oh yeah. All right. Pause right there.
Yeah.
Let me
What was that, like an hour 30 or hour 40-ish maybe?
yeah.
Yes, yes. Bringing it back in.
Did it
Wait,
die?
it just kicked me out. It kicked me out.
Oh,
Okay,
kicked
I'm
you out?
back.
Shoot, sorry
Yeah,
about
I
that.
don't know why. No, you're
All right,
fine.
that's all right. It'll be an easy way to a good intersection there. Okay, let's keep it going. What's the most annoying thing that a teammate can do in practice?
Ask when we're leaving. Or what's the interval?
Pay attention.
Yes.
What
Sometimes
race
it's
in
me.
your career brought you the most satisfaction?
That's not rapid. I'm sorry. Hold on.
That's
Let's unpack.
My most proud swim would probably be my last summer's national championship final, because I was not thinking I was nervous, and I became unbelievably nervous, and it was one of those like get yourself together type of things. Like I knew I could do it, and I wanted it on my resume, and so that swim after having COVID is what I'm most proud of.
Good for you. What time does it take in the 100 free to make the Olympic team next year?
53.67.
Okay. How often do you guys do social kick at Florida?
Once a season. I'll give you under 5. Under 5.
Can we count on you to influence that? What do I need to do? Submit a letter to Nesty? Come on.
An
petition.
anonymous letter, yes.
Natalie, it's easy to see why you came so highly recommended from all of your peers, and
Thank you.
so good on you for having that kind of presence about you, for showing up for people that way, and thank you so much for granting us some time.
Of course. I hope I lived up to the expectations.
Oh, we appreciate it so much. Look forward to watching you race over the next year and however long you do, and excited to know the person behind the cap and goggles as always. So
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
That's it for this episode of Social Kick. We'll see you next time. Hey, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you're enjoying Social Kick, tell your friends about it. And be sure to tell us what you liked by leaving a comment, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Social Kick, and you can find all of our content on our website,